Hello and welcome to another episode of Growing Up B2B. I'm your host, Delia. I'm the second generation president of Delia Associates, the place where B2B brands go to grow. I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. He's Nick Galizia of Contemporary Plumbing and Heating, and he's a second generation leader in the family business. Contemporary Plumbing and Heating is a commercial and residential plumbing contractor serving New Jersey and parts of PA. Their team works on a variety of very large scale projects from luxury apartments to athletic facilities, which often include specialized equipment and installation for spa and pool facilities. Hey, Nick, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay, let's start at the beginning. So, what were some of your earliest memories of the family business?
So I grew up in the family business, so I've been in it as long as I can remember. Bring Your Kid to Work Day just passed, so that was a pretty cool throwback for me because that was my favorite day of the year. We got to skip school and go to work with our dad, and we got to see all the really cool stuff that he does every single day. And yeah, so I've been in it for a long time.
So, how old were you when you first kind of started to tinker around the family business?
I think I really got more involved with it probably when I was 10.
Okay.
We've been around it our whole life, but I would
Mhm.
say actually going to work with him on the weekends and getting to be a part of the team probably happened right when I was 10 years old.
Wow, that's pretty young to be
Yeah,
jumping in.
absolutely. Cheap
So,
labor.
that's right. Yeah, I think my earliest memories at the Associates were maybe 4 years old, but yeah, definitely around 8 to 10, starting to put the kids to work.
That's
Uh,
it.
and it was cheap labor. It was basically I would do a lot for a Star Wars figure because that was
Exactly.
even so. As a younger guy, Nick, did you have a sense that this is what you were going to do, or were there other thoughts on your mind?
I did. I always kind of loved the trades ever since I started going into the field with my dad. I just necessarily didn't have the same vision, if that makes sense. My dad was very blue collar, very hardworking, understood the trade better than anyone I've ever met in my life. Unbelievable teacher. And that kind of shaped me to really love and fall in love with this line of work.
Okay. And was the business always focused on in the plumbing heating space, or was that the core business even when you started?
Yeah, it's always been the core business. So when my dad started the business in 1987, he actually was doing mainly service work and single family rough work. And then over the years, we've progressed what we are today.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. When you look back, what obviously you were coming into the business at a very young age, but what would you peg as your official, I'm starting full time, this is my career date? Like when was that?
So I actually went to college for a very short period of time. And while I was in college, I noticed that I went for business management entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And I got probably three-quarters of the way through my first semester and was like, I haven't learned one thing about business. And that's what I really want to do, is I want to run this business. So
Mhm.
they were on vacation. I ended up packing up my bags, leaving my dorm, and went to work the next day. Then they came home to a pleasant surprise of me no longer in college that they were still paying for, and I was working in the field. So
Wow.
I would have been 18.
Okay. Okay. So what was that? How did they receive that? So you basically said, listen, college is not for me. I want to be part of this business. And here I am. How did your folks respond to that at the time?
So the way it actually went was when they got home from vacation and I told them I no longer wanted to go to college. My dad said, you got two options, or really, yeah, it was two options. One is get out of my house. And the other one is you're going to come to work with me and we're going to make it work. And I said, that works out perfectly because I've already been going into work every day for you, just moving pipe around job sites and doing labor stuff.
Wow.
So
That's
they took
awesome.
it pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. I guess so. So once you made that decision, was there anything that surprised you or that caught you off guard in terms of what you were getting into?
I wouldn't necessarily say caught me off guard. I think the amount of hours I had to put in as a small business kind of took me off guard. I always felt like growing up, and you learn this once you start running the business, that the phone never turns off. You're constantly on the clock, even if you're getting paid or not. And it takes a lot of effort. And I think people think business is a way to get rich fast. And I can tell you it's not. It takes a lot of brain power and it exhausts you pretty quick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. we started to touch on this, the dynamic, but how would you describe the dynamic between yourself and is it just your dad that was in the business or your mom too?
No, my mom is not in the business, but my sister is in the business.
Okay. Okay.
I would say the dynamic is great. We have a lot of friends that are in family businesses, and we see a lot of the complications they go through where it's almost like a very ego-driven company, and we are the complete opposite. Everybody is super open-minded, which is huge. We're all
Hmm.
willing to listen. We're all willing to try new things. It also helps that our dad is at a point where this is your ship. Steer it in whatever direction you feel fit. I'm here if you need anything. And that's very reassuring for us that it's not a constant battle every day.
Now, is your sister still involved, Nick?
She is, yeah. So
Okay.
she's our office manager. She controls everything that happens with inside the building.
So what's that? Because I overlapped with my sister for a number of years here, and I know what that was like. What was it? What's that been like for you?
My sister is probably one of the only people that's not scared to give me a piece of her mind in the sense of she's not going to sugarcoat anything. And I honestly take that information very well. I like being very blunt and to the point and understanding the numbers and the way the business is operating. And she gives me that. And I do the same for her. Like we're a really good yin and yang team. So I find it to be pretty pleasurable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of what you say is resonating because it was the same with my, and she was a much older sister. So, yeah, she had no qualms telling her younger brother what's up. So, is your dad still involved or is he more or less kind of out of the business? Is he retired or is he still have some involvement today?
So my dad is still actively in the business. I don't think he will ever leave 100%. He
Mhm.
absolutely loves what we do.
Okay.
And it's great having him around. How many people get to spend every single day with their dad?
Mhm.
That's a really cool thing for me. His main role in the business now is making relationships, staying within good standing with clients, invoicing, and then we handle the rest.
I see. And that's not uncommon where they've built this thing. They've spent so much time with this thing. It's sometimes I imagine it's hard to leave that thing.
It is his
Uh,
baby.
By the same token, there comes a time where the next generation has the energy and the vision and the fortitude to take it the next leg of the race. And
Yeah,
that's,
absolutely.
pretty much what folks like you and me are charged with doing. So the as you started to take more of an operating and a leadership role in the business, what were some of the, whether they be maybe early wins or maybe even early missteps you made when you first started taking on a leadership role and making some bigger decisions in the organization?
I think for me, it was realizing that you needed to hire the right people. And early on, we made some mistakes with not hiring the right people. What I will say is, I always feel like I never necessarily count all the wins. I try to remember the losses. And we had our ups and downs with certain employees, but we got to a point where we realized that it's for those extra few bucks an hour, a few $1,000s a year, it's a completely different employee that you have. So for me, it made a lot of sense to give our guys more to make sure that they were happy, which made our lives easier so that we weren't in the day to day in the field anymore.
I know that hiring was a tough one for me early on too, because in my industry, and it sounds like to yours as well, Nick, it's talent that drives the machine, right? The best talent drives the machine better. Although sometimes I get enamored with talent, and the talent could come in the form of a seven-headed hydra that's going to eat the entire staff. But I'm like, what? They're really talented. And
Correct.
I quickly learned that, okay, talent is important, but culture is important too. And somebody that aligns with our culture and values, that needs to show up as well. It took me a while to figure that out, and I definitely stepped in a few pits before
Yeah,
I got that worked out.
we did
Uh,
too.
yeah, we all have. When it comes to, and it sounds like you've got a really healthy dynamic there with your father, with your sister. So talk a little bit about that. How do you keep that healthy balance and how do you maintain that healthy balance? Because certainly you're not all going to always align and agree on everything.
So I would say just keeping an open mind is very big. Our lines of communication are consistent. We have a group chat on Teams and through text. So if there's ever an issue, we can always speak our mind and we're always willing to try. My sister comes up with an idea that I don't necessarily agree with. I'm never going to say, well, we shouldn't try it, and vice versa. If I come up with an idea unless it's to extreme financial magnitude, there will be no limits put on it, which to me, that's what you need. And you also need somebody there that's going to say, okay, we've tried it. It's not working. Here's the stats. Here's the data. We need to try something else. And to me, that is what creates such a good like family dynamic in a business is there's not one head honcho. We all work together to make sure that we all feel heard and that we are all working for each other. And that's the end goal here is to make everybody successful, not just one of us.
Awesome. Awesome. So in your particular case, would you say that that flow of communication is more fluid, or do you and your father and your sister have set like meetings every week where you touch in, or is it more of a fluid communication?
So it's both.
Okay.
I would say we do have scheduled meetings once a week. They're usually on Tuesdays, and we'll sit down and just go over the dynamic of the business, cash flow, where we stand from a wide variety of perspectives. And then there'll just be more fluid stuff. The thing is for us is we are a very close-knit family. We still have dinners together. Our kids hang out together. So there's never a time where we're not necessarily together.
Does everybody live more or less regional too? Like you all live close by where you could see each other?
So I live 1 mile from my sister, and my parents are moving to the town that we live in now, and they're going to be about 1,000 feet from me.
Okay. So that's
Yeah.
very local.
So very local. Close enough that we can let the kids ride their bike there and hang out at grandma and grandpa's.
So if you look at, essentially what your dad started, what you're involved in, what your sister is involved in, what if any, like values or maybe guiding principles have you inherited and carried forward from his origins, where you'd say, okay, dad got it right here, and I'm going to carry that through as the next generation of leadership?
Our biggest thing is never being too good to sweep the floor. I am not the kind of person that is scared to throw my boots on and go into a job site. And that comes from my dad. For me, it's more about that we're all equal in the business. Doesn't matter if you're a first year apprentice or you're the owner. We're all here as a team and a family. And to me, that is why our company culture is so good. And that is one of the biggest things I've taken away from my dad is that never forget your roots. We all started somewhere, and it's where we end up is what really matters.
So as you were starting to take on more of a leadership role, I'm guessing there were some people in the business that had some more seniority than you in terms of tenure. Is that?
Not necessarily, because during the recession, my dad ended up letting a lot of his staff go
Okay.
just due to lack of work, lack of payment. And then he started to rebuild it probably right when I was getting out of high school. So when I got it back into the business, it was just him, I, and one other guy.
Okay.
And the one other guy was like at the brink of retirement. We really built this thing up together, which is
Okay.
amazing.
Okay. So you were almost on like kind of a 2.0 mission in the
Correct.
business, if you will. That's very interesting,
Yeah.
which also probably came with its challenges. And I'm going to have to think a lot of hard work and a lot of early mornings and late nights. I'm gonna guess, right?
Yeah.
To get the engine started again. It's not as easy as people think.
It is definitely not. And still to this day, I get up early. I'm in the office early. To me, that is the way business needs to be done. And I also like that because it lets me get home. I have 3 young kids. I like spending time with them. I don't want to be home at 7, 8 o'clock at night. I'd rather go in very early and get done at a reasonable hour.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So in an industry that's traditionally seen as old school, how do you keep contemporary, innovative, and competitive in the current scenario, in the current environment?
So there's always new technology coming out in our industry, and especially as manpower is dwindling in a sense, like one of the biggest things in our industry is a thing called the Pro Press. So instead of soldering domestic water copper piping together, we're now pressing everything together, which kind of allows us to streamline our labor. Now, material expenses go up because the fittings are more, but it was a big way for us to evolve and get to that next step. So the example I always use is if we're in a warehouse and I'm running 4-inch copper and I have to press 30 joints, I could do that in half a day. If I have to solder that, it may take me 4 days to solder 30 joints.
Wow.
So yeah, like constantly being ahead of the curve. And we also adopted a lot of new project management softwares, The big one we use is Builder Trend. And
Hmm.
what that allows us to do is everything is on that system from drawings for the project to submittals to budgeting purposes on what we have budgeted for lifts and other equipment. And it allows guys to take daily pictures of their work, upload them, which is also part of their review every 6 months.
So how do you stay ahead of the technology, both I'll say the digital technology, but also the new methods of doing? How do you keep abreast of your industry?
So we stay very involved with the manufacturers, especially in tools or data, whatever the new systems are that are coming out. We really dive deep into that stuff so we can understand what's coming down the pike in the next 6 months to the year that's going to make our life easier, make our guys' lives easier. That's how we stay ahead of it.
So you're always checking the pulse of what's coming, what's new, and
Correct.
then how or if does it fit in our world?
Exactly.
Okay. So when you think about your approach to leadership and you think about your dad's approach, and we talked a little bit about that, but can you expand on that a little more? How do you see yourself as maybe a little bit doing it a little different than your dad did in terms of your leadership style?
So I would say my dad was very trusting. He gave people the keys to the palace and just praying that they would do the right thing all the time. And my dad was the opposite of me in a sense, like, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but he was quick to hire, slow to fire. I'm the opposite. For me, it's like I understand that if somebody's not fit for your business, then they're just not fit for your business. And nobody benefits if they're there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that what I'd say is probably the biggest determining factor. And also, I came from a different life. My dad, when he was growing up, they didn't have much. And when I was growing up, I didn't necessarily have those same financial struggles that his family had. So I was willing to take a little bit more risk because I felt that there was bigger rewards with bigger projects. So those are like the two different type of leaderships.
Understood, understood. So when you, and you're still early in your journey, but if you do think much on legacy, both family legacy, business legacy, and you think about now it's your turn, right? Your father's essentially still there, but very much there as more of a supportive role or an advisory role. So, Nick, what kind of mark are you hoping to leave on Contemporary? What is your mark going to be?
I just want to be known as the company and the person that always did the right thing. Didn't matter what the situation was, good, bad, or indifferent. We always persevere and we make sure that we're taking care of our clients, taking care of our general contractors. And that's the note I want when a subcontractor is talking to someone about us, that there's no animosity against us, that they're proud that they worked with us and they felt that they got a quality project out of us.
Excellent. So, you talked a little bit about being at least quick to identify and sometimes quick to adopt new tools, new technologies. When you look out at the field of competition, would you say that Contemporary is a bit more proactive in that regard, or are you doing it more of just that's the state of the industry now? Or do you feel like you're ahead of the curve on some things, or more or less staying pace?
We are, I would say we're ahead of the curve on quite a few things. There are a few other competitors that we deal with that are doing similar stuff to us, but it's far
Mhm.
and few between.
Excellent. So, if you look back on your journey so far, what's something you might share that you've learned about people, either family members, your dad or sister, clients, or maybe even employees that's helped you grow as a leader?
For me, I feel like it's really finding a common ground, and that can be with my dad or my sister, or that could even be with a general contractor or a future client, a developer. Understanding that we're all in this for the same end goal, and that is to better ourselves and better our companies and our family. So I feel that what I've really taken from it is that everybody's out here doing the best they can. And the relationships you build today will pay you in the long run. And that's been a big part of our business.
Cool. Again, plumbing and heating to some outsiders doesn't sound like the most glamorous business, but you've built a meaningful business out of in that industry now spanning two generations. So when you finish a day, Nick, what's your pride point? What is, boy, this was a great day, or I made an impact today? What is that thing that really lights you up inside?
From a work perspective or personally?
Both, of course.
So from a work side, I would say we get like sometimes weekly or monthly reviews from general contractors, and it would be like a pretty much a grade saying we feel that contemporary needs to do better in this, or contemporary is excelling in this and they're doing a great job. When I get those days where it's like we get the report, and I would say 95% of the time it's always positive. And to me, those are like big wins because it makes me understand that all the hours and all the effort that all of us are putting in, somebody is noticing, which is like very rewarding to me. And then from the personal side, I love going home and hanging out with my kids. Now my 4-year-old's in T-ball, so that's like
Ah,
they build more sand castles than they do play T-ball, but it's very fun to watch.
it absolutely is. So how, just a quick check on that. So you got a 4-year-old. How old are the other kids?
I got 4, 2.5, and 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. You say you're an early riser. With that kind of clan, there's a lot of late nights too, I bet, or sleepless nights, let's say.
Lately, there has been. There's been some really rough nights the past like month, but we
That's
make it work. And
that's one of the oddities of growing older. I felt as a younger person, I'm the father of twins who are now 20. So when you have twins, there's never a night where both of them are asleep. So you're always sleep deprived. And a younger version of me felt like always deprived, like I needed to sleep. Now I'm older. I hardly sleep at all. I'm like, I could have 10 kids and I'd be great. Okay, whatever. I'm up all night anyway. So
that's me. I don't need much sleep. As long as I get 4 hours, I'm ready to
good to
go.
go. Yeah, yeah, same. So this is an important question, and I ask it of virtually all of my guests because you were at a crossroads at some point. And for you, Nick, it was very early on. You knew almost instinctively that this path was for you. But not every young person knows that when they're confronted with, do I get involved with the family business? Do I take a different path? So if you're gonna were to offer up some advice to somebody, and they're probably going to be in their young 20s, maybe, who might be at that crossroads, or maybe even younger, what might you say to them to help guide that decision-making process?
I would say no success is better than a success with family. The thought that all of our efforts go towards helping each other, that really helps me and makes me understand that the disagreements that you may have with your parent or one of your siblings is minute to what you can build, and it's only temporary. So do everything in your power to get past that because there's always a better option. Lines of communication are the most important things because I see that a lot of family businesses, usually the parent, whoever the owner of it is currently, they're very hard on their kids, and the kids don't necessarily know how to communicate to the parents without it just turning into a disaster. But communication is the key. And sometimes that needs to be done outside of work hours. And it just needs to be a soft conversation. No screaming, no yelling, and find out what your true passion is. Like what I've noticed in our business is we're all talented in something different. My sister can run the office and can build standard operating procedures and really understand how the people think in the office. And I'm really good at growth, scaling, building relationships. My dad is really good with keeping existing relationships, billing, all that stuff. So we all have our pros and cons, and finding out what your pros and cons are as a family are enormous because we see that all the time. Too many people want to be the head dog and they don't understand that there can be multiple heads just in different areas, and everybody just needs to understand that they have to work together. Another big thing I would say is don't be so quick to give up. That's another big thing that I see. I've had probably 5 or 6 friends that were in family businesses that they did it for a year, they couldn't stand it, and they left and went and worked somewhere else. And not that they're living a bad life, but not living a life that they could be living if they were to have come to terms with each other. So I would say that those are 2 major takeaways. Don't be so quick to give up.
That's excellent. I made a lot of great points just then. I think one of them was the nature of communication and how you communicate. I had a previous guest who I thought said it very well when he said, whenever you're communicating, especially when there's a family dynamic involved, the words he used were do no harm. So don't
Yeah,
say anything that you can't walk back. Don't say
correct.
anything that will create irreversible harm. I was also interested, you very well articulated, my sister has certain strengths. I have certain strengths. My dad has certain strengths. And I guess a follow-up question to that would be, did that just come naturally? Did you Did you all sit down and say, "Hey, what roles are we going to play? What are we good at?" Or was it more organic and just having such a high understanding of each other's skills and abilities that it just fell into place that way?
It's very organic. And if you were to ask either one of them, they would have the same outlook, maybe just worded slightly differently. We really understand our places in the business.
Mhm.
That means so much.
Excellent. So if you look to the future or look to the now, what are some things either in the business or the industry that are exciting you right now?
There's a lot of good stuff. It seems like a lot of big new projects are coming out on the market, which is a great thing. The crazier part about our business is average age of a licensed plumber in the state is 66 and a half right now.
Oh my gosh.
And for every like seven guys leaving, we have maybe one replacing them
Oh my
as
goodness.
licensed plumbers. So that's really great news for anyone that owns a plumbing business, as long as they can hold on. And that would be like the biggest thing for me is I think that the issue that we're going to see is there's going to be all this work out here and no real owners. Like in the master plumbing world, they ended up making the test very difficult, like to the point where the business law is almost unpassable for the day-to-day plumber, which isn't necessarily fair. And that's how a lot of people are looking at it is I go to school, I'm a phenomenal plumber. I can pipe in a building all by myself. I don't need anybody. But because I don't understand an insurance question in the business law, I can't get a plumbing license. So that's why there is such a shortfall right now with no one getting their license. So it's a big upside for us
Yeah.
because I got my license 4 years ago now. Wow. And it was not an easy task. I was very fortunate. I passed on my first try, but I had a lot of friends, took them 3 tries, 4 tries. And
Wow.
nothing is more defeating than taking the same test 4 times.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that also signify, or what would be your take on like the rising generation? Do you see them? There was definitely a period of time where there was definitely young people moving away from the trades, moving away from, say, manufacturing into more business services or corporate roles or things of that nature or finance perhaps. Do you see any circle back or swing back? What are you seeing now in terms of that rising generation of future employees?
I think what we're starting to see right now is that a lot of these younger kids are starting to understand that college might not be the best option. And unfortunately, there's just not enough jobs out there for all the kids that want to go to college. And the trades are now paying very competitive, if not better in most cases, because if you start when you're 18, by the time your friends are getting out of college, you're 21, you have 4 years in a trade, you're through your apprenticeship. So most of your friends that are going to start out in white collar America making 40 grand a year, there's potential for you to be at 80 at that point, as long as you're willing to push hard enough. And the nice thing about the trades is you are not governed by years of experience necessarily. You could have 5 years experience, but you really grasp the trade. Like it just comes naturally to you. And who knows, you might be able to run some decent, not massive projects, but some nice sized projects where you can make a phenomenal living for you and your family. So we are starting to see a lot of swing back, and we're very involved with the local trade schools. Like we bring them to our job sites, we show them everything that we do on a daily basis. It is nice to see that a lot of kids are getting interested in it and realizing that there are other options and that it doesn't seem that parents are pushing as hard on the college dynamic anymore, which is great because it's needed.
Agreed, agreed. It's really refreshing to hear you say that because in addition to the trades, we service a lot of manufacturers and they're faced with the same thing. They're the senior operators that are tenuring out or retiring, and there's really nobody there to fill those shoes.
Right.
And, when you actually talk to a CEO and he's telling me about a young person that started right after high school, went through their apprenticeship program. And I was almost like fell out of my chair when I heard what this young fellow was making in a leadership role at the age of 23. I was like, I'm like, okay, so he's making roughly 4 times what the average college grad would make at 23. And the CEO was like, yeah, that's the demand right now. That's what we can pay. If they're good and they're young, we don't care. We'll train them up and we'll make them great.
It's better for them if he's young
Yeah.
because they got to train him the way they wanted. So he has no bad habits. That I think in 10 years, I think what a lot of people need to understand is due to the shortage of people coming into the trades, and do the shortage of licensed plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs is in 10 years, you think it's expensive to get your toilet fixed right now. Just wait. It's going to be 600 to 700 bucks an hour, bare bones, to get somebody to walk in your house, which once again, it's a great thing. Wages are going to go up for everybody. So like that plumber that's walking in your house, don't throw any shade on him because there's a great chance that he's making significantly more money than what you
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. That's pretty wild.
It is.
So last question. If any of our listeners wanted to learn more about contemporary plumbing or get in touch with you to learn more about you, what's the best way for them to connect?
So they can reach out to me in a multitude of ways. I have a LinkedIn. It's just Nicholas Galizia. I think my name was spelt out on the screen earlier. You could also reach us on Instagram. We have Contemporary Plumbing and Heating on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and any of those platforms that you would reach out to us. It all gets directed to the marketing company, and then they reach out to us to let us know of any leads or people looking for job opportunities, etc.
Awesome. Awesome. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. So again, we've been speaking with Nick Galizia of Contemporary Plumbing and Heating, and I'm your host, Ed Delia. Thanks so much for joining us here at Growing Up B2B, and have a wonderful day. Thanks again, Nick.
Thanks, Ed.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into Growing Up B2B. To explore more episodes and insights, visit podcast.delianet.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. Having worked with hundreds of family-led businesses across my career, and being a second-generation leader myself, I'm on a mission to help every family business I meet achieve next-level growth for their organization. So feel free also to connect with me on LinkedIn and let's support each other. You can also find out more about my company at delianet.com. Again, I'm your host, Ed Delia, and thanks so much for joining us today. Take care.